Hello and welcome to Fiber Tech. As always, I'm Nick. Today's video on the wood lathe to metal lathe is about getting this to fit on this. Without further ado, let's get to it. So, as was described very quickly, this is our base unit. I need to. What's going to happen today? There's a circular mount on this, as always, that has a lip on it. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my newly reconstructed and powered wood lathe here to turn this wooden disc down so therefore it fits inside of this. Then I'm going to use some 5/16 BSW bolts to bolt this wooden mount to this once this is at the right diameter. So once this wooden disc is at the correct diameter that just barely fits inside this, so it's a perfect concentric fit, then we can work on other things. And know before anyone asks, that's actually not the right size to directly thread on that. It's close, but not quite. It is, very, very close, but not quite. So, I'm going to chuck this up and get to it. Very quick and dirty tensioner setup, but it does work. It lets me carve off a lot more at one step. So after about 15 other projects for other people, finally got this to fit up nicely and finished it off. So this now fits with, no slop, nothing else. So it doesn't move. This is just the back plate because I need to work out how to attach this. So the next question that some people are probably asking, and I asked the same question to myself about 10 times during the making of this, is how the heck do I join these two bits together? But also able to screw it back together, because these screws actually hold the whole chuck mechanisms together. What my plan is to make custom bolts out of the threaded rod I have plenty of, which I'm not going to pull out because there's a whole bunch of other stuff on that rack. But the big long threaded rod, and I'll make my own bolts that go through this material, okay? That's essentially my plan. But first of all, I have to know where those bolts actually go, which is, of course, these 3 bolts here, these 3 here. I've got to drill through or find out a way of doing those centers to do that. So that's sort of where we're up to at this point in time. Is a very, very nicely fitting block of wood that adapts from this thread, this actual lathe thread, out to the plate itself, if I keep in frame. So now I'm going to mark this up and try to work out how to actually put this thing together. Well, after a bit more sanding and polishing and finishing, I'm happy with the squareness, the flashness of that face. I'm now going to drill out these 3 holes to meet the hole requirements for the bolts I need to stick through this plate to make everything line up and work as I want it to do so. So yeah, that's all I really got to do left now is just mount it up and then show you what my next little thing is to do with this. So, after me trying to drill out the really nice bit of wood, as you can see, it broke apart. Got a little bit annoyed with this. So, the ensuing 3/4 of an hour that I did to try to work out how to mount this up differently, I found out that the actual fitting of the screw fastener and the backplate are actually close enough that I could actually line up those bolts. Now, as you've noticed, I've had to, that cutout was me trying to get it to fit to the wooden block. But the other 2 very small ones, one there and one there, what that allows is just for the bolt to pass. That's it. And by doing that and using some relatively short bolts that I have lying around, and of course preceding washers, it actually allows me to clamp this up directly, like so. I should say, well, like so. So it allows for a much lower profile and actually a better center. Now, the reason why I was going to use the wooden block is because it was already set up to be concentric, i.e. the center of this block was the center of this, which was the center of this, was all lining up. Now you may ask, well, if I'm getting rid of this block, because it's broken and everything else, how am I going to line up the center of this to the center of this? And that is done quite simply by using one of these. What I realized was when you stick this bar in there, there's a radius here, sort of a fillet almost. And what this does is it basically acts as a cone. And when you stick a cone into a hole under the weight of gravity, the center of this rod is now automatically in the center of that, of the hole in which you have. It's just a function of geometry. It's quite a simple thing, but it works. So what I can do is I can put that through there, once I remember to undo these claws a little bit, and once that's through this, I can then clamp that rod into the metal jaws. That does 2 things. One, it actually provides the tension and centering forces. 2, it also provides the compressive forces. So it actually holds this bar against this collar. I didn't watch that. This collar to actually do what it's meant to do. So if I can find, my makeshift key at this stage. So once that sits low enough, and you pull it into place, this is actually being held centered, as I said before, by the function of the geometry. So simple cone or fillet on this, the increasing diameter as it goes up consistently, right? What that does is it centers this. So this bar is now in the center of this. Now, when we close up the jaws, we are now clamping that rod into the center of the metal chuck, meaning that this is now concentric, i.e. the center of this bar is in the center of this, which is now in the center of this, doing exactly the same job as this, except reducing the almost inch, or 20 some odd mil, that was in here. And that just now allows me to line everything up, put my bolts in, and I have something that works. I didn't know why I didn't do this in the first place, but you can get the idea how that works. And this system gets me within about, I want to say about 1/3 of a mil, 0.3 of a millimeter of run out. So the shaft, so when I screw this back into the wood lathe, that gives me, this shaft is now within about 1/3 of a millimeter of being perfectly round, right? Which is pretty good, considering the first time I tested this block, it was almost 1/2 a millimeter. So simpler is always better, obviously. It's a weird thing sometimes when you do that sort of stuff, is sometimes the simpler option is the better option. All I do is I just tighten these bolts down, undo my rod, pull the rod out, and I now have something that is centered. So, you know, very simple, but it works. So eventually, the plan is, now I've realized this, is that the actual hole that flows through the middle of this, the actual through hole of that metal chuck, is very similar in the diameter to the threaded hole that actually goes onto the lathe anyway. So what I can do is, if I know the thread, and I know someone with an actual metal lathe that can do internal threading, I can actually directly thread this chuck onto that metal lathe. That would be the ultimate goal. But for the time being, this works. So I'll go into the lathe and I'll show you a little bit more about what it looks like on the lathe. So here's what it looks like once it's up on the lathe itself. So it's pretty simple, isn't it? So when I turn on the lathe, you can see that it spins, and it spins quite well. Again, this is not ideal because there's no real, I'm relying on basically friction of 3 bolts to hold this onto this, on this metal chuck onto this threaded chuck. So not the best, but it definitely does the job. My quick polishing of a bit of metal worked quite well. It actually sort of took most of the rust off of it. It does have sort of, because I don't have a proper chuck key, and that's why I have to make one, it sort of doesn't clamp as tight as it should, which is fine. So, yeah, so now I have the ability to use it as both a wood lathe and a metal, and to clamp metal up. I still have to make a chuck key for this and a few other bits and bobs, but I have power and I have the ability to clamp work up. Once you have that sort of together, you can start working on actually making other things, like a tailstock is definitely the next thing I'm looking into making, but that requires me to do the bed. I got to work on the bed yet next, which will probably be in the next video if any money comes through. Anyway, so I have been Nick from FireBoTech. Thank you for watching. If you do like the video, please like, subscribe, and do the usual shenanigans. If you wish to contribute to the channel, there will be a PayPal link in the description below, a PayPal donation link in the description below. That is set up so you can donate 1 cent or whatever the heck you feel like. It all goes towards projects such as this, and makes them go a little bit faster. So, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.